can do it.
Oh, lost
Look
it.
at that. I planned that the whole time.
Hi. Hi. How about? Welcome back to the channel, everyone. Michael with RC Crawling. It's been about a month since I posted, and just gotten busy. Life's been in the way. I've missed you all. I hope you've missed me, but we're back together again. I won't leave you again so long. Here's Indigo. He's also missed everybody. So today we are building the K-Truck, and I think this is going to wrap up the Scx24 build-along series. It's been a good series for general knowledge about the Scx24, showing the most common upgrades. There's a lot of innovation going on in the hobby. Hey, dude. And there's new things happening all the time, so I could probably update this again in the future, but for now we're going to call this series finished. Indigo's helping. There's the K-Truck. We're going to put it together until the point that I stopped filming and just built the rest of the thing. So I'll talk you through that portion and we will go run it on the rocks. Starting to get this Psycho DRC Joker Why So Serious V3 chassis assembled. The only tip I have is the sliders screw on from the inside of the chassis rail. So we're going to put those on first. We've got 2 screw holes there. They're going to line up with these top 2 holes here. So I'm going to fish out some hardware and get these screwed on. And I will check in and out with everyone at crucial assembly points for this chassis. Here, got the sliders / trays on both chassis rails screwed on from the inside. And I've got our skid plate. I went with the Endura reversible skid plate so I can mount transmission either way, and I don't have to buy a different motor mount to do a forward or rear facing mount. I do want it rear facing. I'm going to be using this Mofo medium velocity pancake. So it's going to be sticking out of the back, and I'm going to do a cutout. Anyways, I'm going to be mounting the other half of the chassis rail up here. But what I like to do on these 3D printed parts is use my hobby knife, and these larger holes here are where the pegs on your skid plate nestle into. So those little pegs there. Sorry, my fingernails are gross. I've been getting into the diffs on these stock but used axles. So where those little pins are lines up with these big holes. Just to make sure they nestle easily, I like to just wallow that hole out a little bit. So I just almost countersunk it a bit with the end of that hobby knife. And so when you screw it together, you've got a nice flush. Come on, focus. A nice flush joint. So I'm going to continue getting this screwed together, and then we will start thinking about our link placements. All right, I've got the bulk of the chassis rails assembled. Now it's just a matter of attaching links, axles, shocks, transmission, body, you know, just the rest of it. But anyways, check that out. How cool is that? All these positions for shocks, all these positions for links, even got some possible link positions up here in the rear. I'm not sure if I'm getting this to focus very well. Come on. Nice magnet mounts. Super cool profile. Let me grab the body. So this chassis, I'll end up probably mounting something like this. And look at what an awesome, hopefully, awesome coincidence. Hopefully that we can get it mounted like that where the chassis just almost perfectly matches the wheel well. And we are going to have to do some trimming, so I imagine a lot of this might have to go. But that's pretty cool. I think that's going to look slick. And somehow we need to pack all our electronics right under there. So, some challenges coming up, but we'll figure it out. All right, I've got the rear links put in the typical position on the skid plate. That's how I have it set up on the C10. Skid plate, skid plate. So axle's on now. Rear axle at least. And I think I'm just going to copy the C10 link placement and also move my links forward. So not in the normal skid plate mounting positions, but move forward with the uppers attached up here to the rail. I like the way this thing drives. It handles well, so we'll see if it works the same with a big hard body on top. So I'm going to keep plugging away and I will keep checking back in with you. How cool does this chassis look? If we get the autofocus to work. Just how awesome is that? The red and black are coming together exactly how I imagined. Check out that aggressive skid angle. Then we set the body on here, something like that. Definitely going to need to do some trimming around the front tires and fenders, but I think I like that wheelbase. I think I like how that's going to look. Might play around with the forward placement, but I think it's pretty much sitting where I want to mount it. So I have a decent approach angle and a pretty decent departure angle. So I think this will be a nice little truck. So I'm going to keep plugging along. Still got to get the transmission and motor mounted up, get the drive shafts thrown in there. So I'm going to keep plugging along and I will pop back in. I took a break. I worked until about 1 a.m. and decided that was enough. So off camera I did get the Mofo medium velocity pancake attached to our Endura transmission. I am going to run it rear facing, which is not always ideal for weight distribution. And you can see that the body contacts the motor. So I am going to be doing a cutout. That was the plan all along, to have a cutout through the bed so the motor can pop out. But I've also been doing some dremeling on this body. So cut these areas and then this area so it will sit on the chassis nicely. So cutouts there, and then cutouts so it didn't contact the chassis rails up front. So I have no idea what I'm doing, but I think the next step will be to go ahead and get the body mounted using magnets onto the chassis. Clearly I'm going to need to do some trimming for the front tires. I think the rear tires are going to be okay. So looking underneath here, the back of the magnet mounts are going to go right here on the bed. So I need to build out this with some styrene so it's the same level, so I can attach this portion to the front and it'll all be level all the way across. So I'm going to build a styrene platform here for the magnets, glue some magnets in. I'll get this thing mounted and then I will pop back in once it's dry and talk about our next steps. Alright, it's been a few days. I've got the magnets glued into the mounts, and I've been looking at how to get the body mounted, and I think I've arrived at the solution I'm going to use. Looking underneath the body, I've trimmed out some of those plastic stiffening rails, so our chassis will sit nicely in between there. Without trimming that, they kind of contacted and didn't sit well. And under the front, you can see this, the seat is raised compared to the bed. So what I've done is cut 3 pieces of styrene, stacked them together, glued magnets on it. And so I'm going to glue this underneath the seats, and that'll sit on there. I'm just going to use some magnets as clamps to kind of show what we're going for. So when I get this all lined up, this is essentially the stance that we'll have. Let me take you off the stand. So that's kind of the stance I'm going for. I might play around with the suspension mounting points once I've get this body glued on here on the magnet mounts. And then of course I'll have to do some trimming around those wheel wells to allow it to flex properly. But I think I like the way that looks. I'm not going to have to trim a whole lot. So I am going to go ahead and glue this off camera, make sure it's straight, and then we will come back and continue probably trimming the body and then working on the motor cutout. And this is the point that I stopped filming and just got distracted with building. I wasn't sure how I was going to continue, so I wanted to try to think through it and start the process, and then I never stopped. So I'm going to talk you through what I did. Let me flip the camera around. I've got the transmission and motor mounted up. I did end up putting a spacer on the front side of the transmission to just rock it back a little bit. Since the skid is at such an aggressive angle, just trying to be a little bit nicer to the drive shafts. I packed all the electronics under this tray. Right now they're just taped on there, and this just sits there. So the receiver's there. Got Big Kid Tiny Truck ESC on one slider, and then the battery sits right here on this slider. And I should probably do something nicer than that at some point, but it doesn't bother me. It's held on by the body. Running plastic drive shaft in the rear with steel drive shafts up front. Drive shaft, there's only one. Help with that forward weight bias that we're always chasing. And I sat here and thought about this, how to measure and cut through the body when it can just kind of slide around. So I mounted the body without the transmission and motor in there. And I realized, you can see the work that I've done. I realized that the magnets are the point that lines up. So those are the points that I should measure from. So I used my handy dandy cheapo Walmart, it's not a protractor, caliper, it even says on here. Measured from the magnets to the motor, just kind of like that, and then marked it up on the bottom of the body. As you can see, I got a little carried away with the Dremel. Just started cutting and trimming, placing it back on there to make sure it fit right. I think in between there, that's when I added the spacer to rock the motor backwards a little bit, because the drive shafts were not happy at such an extreme angle, especially the rear one. So just use the cutting wheel for the Dremel to cut through the bed. I hadn't glued on the wooden bed portion when I was doing that, so that was real easy to do. Then I just used a Sharpie to mark the bottom of the wood where I would trim through, and was able to cut a smaller hole, as the whole transmission doesn't stick up, just barely the motor sticks through, which I think is a neat look. Glued this on, used the Dremel to cut through the fret wire to release this cutout for the motor. We've got a driver to fit with our skull theme. I got a Grim Reaper driver 3D printed by John with Grandpa's RC Offroad Recovery. John was great to work with. He found and read my mind basically on this driver. I said I needed it 42 millimeters tall. He said, here's this, and even threw in this red cup that matches perfectly with the Starbucks cup that I threw in for a little detail. That's a cake topper. And then this was custom 3D print by John. Shout out Grandpa's RC Offroad Recovery. And John also printed up this coffin for me. I did make a styrene coffin, and it just didn't have the look that I wanted. So I was chatting with John and said, I want a coffin. It's going on this red and black K-truck. Already had the stickers on there. Told him I wanted the Grim Reaper driver, and he nailed it. He found this file, printed it up for me, and mailed it to me along with the driver. And I added the paintwork to the coffin. I just finished today adding the chains. So just went to Walmart, got some cheapo necklace chains, and really just drilled holes in the body to attach the chains to. Yeah, I drilled Come on, let's focus. Drilled and gave our skull an eyebrow piercing and a jaw piercing, I guess, to run the chains through to hold it on, and then got lazy and just wrapped it around the license plate. Decided to go with gold just to give it a little bit of an extra pop of color. You can see I have been driving this thing. I'm not careful with them. It's got some rock rash already. I can touch that up whenever I feel like it. The mirrors, I did not anticipate them losing paint so easily, but they're kind of flexy, which is great so they don't break off, but the paint also flakes off real easy when they flex. Flex. So that's essentially how I finished up the K-Truck. I've been driving and testing it. I like how it performs. You see I've got the rear shocks laid down pretty far and the front ones standing up, laid back a little bit. Did trimming on the fenders to get the tires to just tuck real nicely under that fender. It's just, I'm really pleased with how that turned out. I don't think I could have planned for a better fitment, so I'm real pleased with how that worked out. So I'm going to quit talking and boring everybody. I lied. I'm not done talking yet. I'm going to bore you a little bit longer. Let's go ahead and use the setup table and check the RTI side hill and vertical. Get this on here without the rear wheel lifting. We'll call that 14. Nice performances according to crawlerpark.com setup table. I've got rigs that are flexier that perform worse and rigs that are less flexy that perform better. So flex is not really a measure of anything other than flex. Let's go ahead and throw it on the setup table and test the side hill. From driving, I'm not expecting this to be a great number. It's, as you can imagine, a little tippy. It's narrow and top heavy. There's 25, 30, 35, leaning a little bit, 40, oh, lost it, say 41, 42. Ouch, on me. Hey bud, this is Lance. We call him Lancelot or Dandelion. Buddy, we're doing science. Yeah, this is no time for goofing off. We're ready to test the vertical incline. I've got a lipo bag just to try to cushion the fall a little bit. I expect a decent number out of here. 30, 40, 45, 50, 55, 60. Still feels solid on there. Oh, there we go. 63. Pretty good. So now we're going to go hit the rocks and just enjoy driving it. Here we are on the outdoor course. I've been on vacation in Washington State, doing a lot of camping and hiking. Summited Mount St. Helens, hiked 26 miles total. So it's been a while since I've crawled. I'm happy to be back on the course. Enough blathering. Let's look at the truck. With that Mofo RC medium velocity pancake, it does. Hold on, we got a helicopter. this anyways. As I was saying, this MVP motor pretty fast, so it's not a speed demon, but it's got enough wheel speed. This little truck is just insanely maneuverable. 33% underdrive, stock gearing in the front diff. Did do the stock axle steering mod and cut it pretty deep. So I expect I'm going to break an axle shaft at some point, because I've had to turn the dual rate down even further. When I first had it cranked all the way up, those axle shafts were clicking, which is not good. See, the course is a little overgrown and it needs some attention. Gotta be careful about tipping over. The side hill is not the best. But managing to make it through here pretty clean. Uh-oh. Our coffin slid forward and was contacting the motor. I have to deal with that. A lot of people ask me how I like these DJ crawler tires. I think they're great. The foams they came with were garbage, so I'm running Enjoy Yellow inserts, and I'm real happy with them. They've got grip, plenty of grip when I need it. The inserts give me lots of sidewall support. So, grab you a set, they're great tires. Don't have high hopes for making the frame bender, or keeping it in focus apparently, but that was nice. That was a good line. We're going to come over here and do our 45-degree incline. According to the setup table, should be no problem, but that's not in real-world conditions. And there's Mr. Death himself. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Alright. I was not watching my line. Composed on the downhill. And this is just one of my favorite lines on the course. Lots of wheel speed, but nice and smooth, slow speed crawl with Big Kid Tiny Truck ESC and Mofo MVP. Use that wheel speed to bounce up there. And this rock doesn't look it, but it is one of the most difficult obstacles on the course right now. The way the dirt has kind of washed away from it. Got a big vertical spot here. A nice ramp for getting the wheel up here, but that catches axles all the time. So it's got some hidden sharp points in there that'll hang you up. Let's see if we can get it in the K-truck. And it just walks up it, no problem. Another one of my favorite lines. It's got a slow crawl and work. Try to catch this left front tire, get it to hook if we can. Oh, we're so close to getting it. There we go. Oh, come on. And you can see why it gets rock rash so fast. I've done this line with this truck, but not with the coffin and driver. Ah, finally. So, even though this thing won't side hill very well at all, you can still find and hit some really cool lines with it. Hope you've enjoyed this series as much as I've enjoyed making it. The C10 is off to a better home. I've been described as a crawling vampire, so I bet another friend. He's got the C10 and is already printing new bodies for it. So we might be seeing something from him. I'm going to try to talk him into Instagram. So, like I said at the beginning, this series would end with a full custom ground up build. I think we did it. If you've watched this whole series, I hope it was fun. And I hope you now have the ability to build your own truck and upgrade the RTRs if you enjoy doing that. Been kind of worried about what to do after this series ended, but I think I've got an idea. I just got something in the mail. I know what's in it, but I'm not going to show you. So if you made it to the end of the video, I appreciate that. Leave a comment. What's in the box? So I know that you made it this far. And if you would help support the channel by subscribing, liking, leaving a comment. I love interacting with other people into crawling. So That's not just for the algorithm. That I actually enjoy it. What's the last one? Sharing. Sharing is caring. Share the video with somebody that you want to bite and turn into a crawling fiend. So I hope to catch you again soon, and we'll talk about what's in the box next time.